Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Stellar Development Foundation's Q4 2023 quarter in review. I'm Carolyn Yee. I'm the Senior Comms Manager at Stellar Development Foundation, and the last quarterly call of the year is always a packed one. So in order to have time for Q&A, this is going to be a slightly condensed version of our typical quarterly content. You can always check out the full report on the site later today. So for the agenda, first, CEO and Executive Director Denelle Dixon will recap some noteworthy highlights for us from Q4. Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem, will go over network stats and cover what we've done to make innovation easy and scalable, with an emphasis on Sorbonne. And he and Denelle will review what we did to win over builders as well. Jordan Edelstein, CMO, will highlight what we've done to build trust through utility. And then Denelle will be back to wrap things up with a look at what will guide SDF's work in 2024. And we will leave some time at the end for your questions. So submit them throughout the call using the Q&A menu option in Zoom. So that is the agenda. Denelle, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So just as I was waiting to get on this call, I hit my Bluetooth settings off so that I couldn't do anything the whole time Carolyn was talking, and I was very nervous I wasn't going to be able to come back to it. But here I am. It was an active quarter and a tremendous year. We'll dig into all of it. First up, some highlights from Q4. So last quarter, the network processed over 92 million payments and over $1.3 billion in relevant asset transaction volume, which is pretty awesome. Over 3 rounds this quarter, the Stellar Community Fund awarded almost $4 million worth of lumens to 88 projects. And thanks in part to the support provided by SCF and by the Stellar community as a whole, we have officially reached 100% of project types represented in the Sorbonne minimum viable ecosystem, which is a huge feat and super important to do this before its launch. We published a paper aimed at policy audiences, making the case for the value of open systems and advocating for further adoption of them. And last but not least, we commemorated the 1-year anniversary of Stellar Aid Assist, and as of January, celebrated $2 million dispersed by the UNHCR into Ukraine. When we kicked off 2023, we said that we would be relentlessly focused on utility to grow the network. And with the collaboration of this awesome ecosystem, I'd say we delivered on that goal, and we'll build on that momentum for 2024. I'll be back in a bit, but for now, I'm going to kick it over to Justin, who's going to walk us through network stats and building block number 1.
Great. Thank you, Denelle. Hi, everyone. I'm Justin Rice, VP of Ecosystem. I'm here to report on some key network stats and also to give an update on what we've done this quarter to make innovation easy and scalable. Let us start with a look at the numbers. So first, let's check in on network activity and growth. The first metric, total accounts. In Q4, total accounts were at about 7.8 million, which is a 5% increase compared to the same time last year. The second metric, total number of payments. There were 92 million payments compared to 46 million in the same quarter last year. So more payments, more people using the network to make payments. That is what we want to see. The average daily DEX volume this quarter was about 9 million lumens worth per day, which is a decrease from Q4 last year. And total operations count was also down. So operations on Stellar, that's any function that changes the ledger state. So that includes those payments. It also includes those buy and sell orders on the DEX. So the decreases in total operations is likely caused by the decrease in average daily DEX activity. And that can be partially attributed to a drop in non-payment related activity on the network. Essentially, from what we can tell, looking at network activity, a few siloed projects were hitting the DEX pretty hard this time last year, and they eased up over the past few months. I do want to note that when you zoom out, there's still been a ton of network activity overall. In fact, the total number of operations processed on Stellar is now over 14 billion with a B. Also, with the launch of Sorbonne, you should expect to see new protocols that are being built by the ecosystem that open up new possibilities for liquidity provision and for asset conversion. And so these innovative solutions are likely going to impact some of these stats, maybe even give us some new stats to look at. So stay tuned, 2024. But now let's come back to 2023 Q4 and look at metrics for relevant assets. So we define relevant assets as assets tethered to real financial instruments, so fiat currencies, yen, euro, this kind of thing. Tracking these assets gives us a pretty good indication of how well Stellar is actually doing connecting global financial systems. The on-network transaction volume of relevant assets grew by 337% year over year. That transaction volume includes activity attributable to like a lot of wallets like RTM and Vibrant that are bringing more activity to the network, which is a great thing. In 2023 as a whole, relevant asset transaction volume totaled over $2.5 billion worth, which is about a 184% increase compared to 2022. That is a positive growth trend that we've seen year after year for the last few years, and it shows that the network increasingly does connect people to the global financial system. The last set of metrics measure the decentralization of the network. Now, decentralization plays a critical role in the health and success of the network, and so we continue to monitor the number of nodes and the average ledger close times to see how the network is holding up. So first, let's look at the number of Tier 1 validator nodes. So these are nodes that are run by organizations that have gained a high level of network trust. They're essential to network health and resilience. Currently, the network has 23 Tier 1 validator nodes. And outside of Tier 1, the total number of network nodes, according to StellarBeat, which is an independent network explorer that tracks these kinds of things, is 108. Reliably, as expected, ledgers continue to close in a little over 5 seconds, which is excellent to see given the transaction volume, the number of payments we've seen this year move through the network. Okay, next up. Here's a quick reminder of our 2023 roadmap and the 3 building blocks before we jump into each one. This is the last time we'll reference this particular roadmap during our quarterly calls. And right now we're going to turn to building block 1, which is focused on making innovation easy and scalable. It has been the priority for the quarter and for the year. All right, we are getting close to Soroban launch on Mainnet. If you've been following our channels over the last couple of weeks, you'll know there have been some recent updates on the timeline after feedback and discussion with the ecosystem. And so rather than just focus only on Q4, we're also going to touch a little bit on what's ahead. Here's where things currently stand. In response to ecosystem feedback about a bug discovered in Stellar Core v20.1.0 last week, which could have affected a very narrow slice of the ecosystem, namely applications that use fee bumps to sponsor Soroban transactions. So in response to that bug, Stellar Network validators proposed postponing the vote to upgrade the Stellar Mainnet to Protocol 20 and ultimately opted to. That delay should be pretty brief. In fact, already those validators have proposed a rain date for the upgrade vote, which is February 20th. And operators of network infrastructure are already starting to get ready for it. So here's the new projected timeline. Looks kind of like this. February 2nd, that's tomorrow. Stellar Core 20.2 release, the release candidate will come out. That's the updated software that supports Protocol 20 and fixes that bug. On February 6th, we'll deploy that to the testnet. That requires a testnet reset. So if you use testnet, please take note, there's a testnet reset Tuesday. Make sure you are ready to recreate all your testnet data, all part of the rollout. On February 9th, the Core 20.2 stable release will be ready, and we're going to remind all core operators to grab it as soon as possible. February 20th, validators are planning to vote on the Protocol 20 upgrade. So if a quorum of validators armed for the upgrade, that upgrade happens immediately, thus commencing phase 0. Phase 0, I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. But I just want to note before I do that upgrading the network is not something that SDF does alone, right? Validators, they make their own decisions. It's part of this open source, open participation community. It's a collective ecosystem effort as we progress along the timeline. And so we need your help. We need your participation. And we will continue to communicate with all of you, the ecosystem validators, Stellar fans, Soroban boosters, as we make our way to Mainnet. For now, just make sure to check out our blogs from the past week for additional context and details, and definitely see the Protocol 20 upgrade guide for up-to-date info and links to relevant releases. All right. Protocol 20 upgrade February 2nd, 20th. What happens after a protocol upgrade vote if it goes through? Well, in addition to voting on protocol version, validators also vote on network settings, including the settings that determine how many net new Soroban transactions can get added to each ledger. So I mean net new because the addition of Soroban transactions, the Soroban transactions are added to the non-Soroban transactions, the transactions that rely entirely on built-in Stellar operations, those continue as normal. So the plan is to introduce those Soroban transactions in phases, to start by allowing a small amount of smart contract activity, and then to gradually increase the amount once it's clear that things are stable. Phased rollout. Phase 0, which begins immediately following a positive validator vote, is designed to allow network operators to observe the network after the upgrade. It is not intended for developers to deploy contracts. So it's operator observation. In phase one, builders gain the ability to deploy contracts on Mainnet for testing. So this is intended for developers to deploy contracts, test readiness, and for network operators to gauge the impact of smart contracts on network performance. And then finally, phase two marks the deployment of a user-ready mainnet where contracts can support regular usage. That's the phase rollout. One thing I just want to say real quick about the slight delay in the plan is that bugs are a part of normal software development, and Soroban is by far the biggest and most complex protocol upgrade to date. So the question wasn't whether there'd be bumps along the way, it was just how we as an ecosystem came together to work through them. And I think it's really great that we were able to convene and coordinate and adjust plans so quickly. And I also just want to assure you that, to ensure the robustness of Soroban in preparation for the mainnet launch vote, the SDF engineering team has worked in Q4, and even before that, but worked in Q4 to increase test coverage of the Soroban stack, completed internal and external audits of the Soroban runtime, and we will be sharing more about that in the future. All right. Moving on, because Soroban has been built in the open with ecosystem engagement going strong all year, something quite noteworthy has happened as a result. An increasingly robust ecosystem and more engagement around governance has emerged alongside the tech itself. So again and again, the value of decentralized governance and open participation has proven itself in the process of working side by side with the ecosystem to bring Soroban to life. So when Soroban goes to mainnet, this energy for open participation and governance, I think it'll be more important than ever. We're definitely thankful to be part of an ecosystem that does show up, that does engage, and that contributes to the success of everyone who's building on Stellar. And of course, if you want to engage, we encourage that. Please join us on the Stellar Dev Discord. That's where we're all gathered, supporting each other, working together, and when need be, hashing it out. All right, moving along to building block 2, let's go over what we're doing to win over builders. We'll start with the Soroban Adoption Initiative, which is all about how we contribute to a thriving DeFi ecosystem with real sustainable use cases, leveraging smart contracts. This quarter, we continue to push out content and resources to attract developers and support them as they explore and experiment, and our efforts are paying off. So over 8,300 members are participating in the Stellar Dev Discord. There are currently over 170 projects that we know of in the Soroban public project directory, and there are more getting added every day. And as Denelle mentioned, we've hit 100% representation of project types in what we call the Soroban minimum viable ecosystem. That's pretty essential because that minimum viable ecosystem includes all the building blocks that are necessary to attract new developers, help them get up to speed, and allow them to focus on solving problems they're passionate about. It includes DeFi protocols, developer tools, public goods, educational platforms, basically all the things you need to write smart contracts, to build dApps, and to integrate DeFi into your product or service. So there's coverage of all that. It's spread across various projects, and many of them are already in the process of getting launch ready. Through the Soroban Adoption Fund, which is a dedicated $100 million envelope within our mandate, we're supporting developers as they learn, tinker, build, test, launch, and scale. And this quarter, the Stellar Community Fund 5.0 began powering community voting with something called neural quorum governance, which is a novel approach to collective decision-making that was designed for SCF in collaboration with the R&D firm Block Science. SCF also received 226 submissions in Q4 and ended up awarding more than $3.8 million worth of lumens to 88 projects, thanks to input from the community. So that brings the 2023 total for SCF to over $13 million worth of lumens awarded to over 190 projects. And I just want to stress, this is an open application program. Anyone can apply, which is really cool because with the community and open applications, we're really helping to bootstrap and doing it in a way that provides equitable access. So to help SCF projects get feedback, we also hosted a pre-mainnet testing and feedback week, and over 120 people from the community interacted with nearly 50 participating projects. And based on feedback about the feedback, it seems like it really helped those projects to learn a lot and to iterate faster. In addition to SCF, we also offer programs for developers to get started and get their feet wet, experiment, and to create educational, informational, and just plain fun content. So there were some new games in Q4. RP Siege 5 offered 4 individual challenges focused on things like Soroban's unique approach to data storage. And RP Siege Axe and Ember was a text-based adventure game that combined coding and art with collectible NFTs and a storyline to make learning how to write smart contracts a bit more interesting. We also completed another round of Sora bounties this quarter, which offered awards for creating tutorials. And we ran Sorabonathon Road to Mainnet, which was a month-long virtual hackathon that awarded projects focused on equity tokenization, compliance capabilities, shared expenses, and a virtual on-chain farm that lets you buy, feed, and auction virtual cows in order to learn about smart contracts. That last one, Cow Chain, falls into one of my favorite categories of educational content, which is strangely compelling. But anyway, putting it all together, this quarter, we try to create opportunities for devs of all interests and all levels of experience, from RP siegers to cow chainers to DeFi protocols. And we've helped them, I hope, to do great work, and they are all doing great work to bring Sorbonne to life. So back to Denelle to continue with this building block. I will be back later for Q&A, so send us your questions, Sorbonne or otherwise, using the Q&A feature. Denelle.
Thank you, Justin. That was a lot of really, 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 really good words. So thank you for taking the time to go through all that. In Q4, we made a $3 million investment in Alting, a Taiwan-based company working to reinvent e-commerce using blockchain technology. This investment seeks to help bring network benefits from increased interoperability with Asian payment flows brought forth by Alting. Throughout 2023, we've leveraged investments as a way to help builders prioritize building on Stellar. That led us to a total of 7 investments in companies focused on building in Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, Asia, and globally. We invested over $7 million in a market that hasn't made it easy for growing businesses to gain support for their work and to grow. So we'll keep this up for 2024 as well to ensure that sustainable Stellar uses continue to grow and get the support that they need. Okay, tier 1 assets. They're a focus area under this building block because we need to ensure we're fostering growth for the most used assets in the world to be represented on Stellar. In Q4, adoption of fiat-backed stablecoin, EURC, on Stellar continues to grow since going live on the network last quarter, with over 970,000 in circulating supply. Mercado Bitcoin, the largest exchange in Latin America, also enabled EURC on Stellar for deposits, withdrawals, transfers, and trading. And Stasis, a trailblazer in issuing euro-backed stablecoins, brought the EURS to Stellar in Q4. It's a great example of how we're expanding access to trusted versions of the second most widely used currency in the world on Stellar. In 2023, tokenization on the network reached new heights, with Stellar gaining recognition as a leader. You don't have to take our word for it. Funds managed by institutional players, including Franklin Templeton, WisdomTree, Bitbon, ABN AMRO, which represent tokenized real-world assets like securities, fiat currencies, gold, and more, reached a total market cap of over $340 million last year. Messari stated in its latest crypto thesis that funds on Stellar have grown to be the large plurality of tokenized treasuries and the largest liquid instruments that any Wall Street firm have actually offered on-chain, including stablecoins. Stellar was designed for asset tokenization way back when, and we've seen its features make it an easy choice for issuers to build on and take their assets to market. Those features include like the clawback functionality and other compliance features that regulated entities are going to have to leverage. But I also want to highlight that further to SDF's mission, tokenization on Stellar is providing financial access to new customers in new markets in a new way. People who previously were not able to leverage these tools, they now can. This is what our work is all about. With tokenization, the Stellar network strengths and SDF's mission have converged and taken hold in the real world. Tokenization may have now become a buzzworthy thing, because institutional interest and fund sizes are growing and regulatory changes are making room for new opportunities. But once we really start to recognize who these financial tools are reaching that were previously excluded, and we're hoping that we see a lot more of that, what it will do for them and what unforeseen innovations are unlocked, more people will understand that it's a game changer. So I'll be back in a bit, but for now, here's Jordan with a look at what we've achieved in the third building block.
All right, thanks, Denelle. Hey, everyone. I'm going to walk through the updates on building block 3, one of my favorites, where we focus on utility to build on trust. And so our strategic initiatives here really revolve around public profile as well as public policy. Well, starting on the policy side, the team closed out the year with continued engagement of international and domestic audiences, ensuring that SDF is seen as a reliable source on key policy issues. And one thing to highlight, if you missed it, is a new paper we put out making the case for open systems, creating an interoperable, integrated world. And the paper explores content, core principles, and real-world applications of open systems to make a compelling argument for further adoption of open systems by emphasizing their role in fostering innovation, transparency, equitable access to technology. SDF's dedication to advancing this cause ensures a continued focus on creating a connected and interoperable future. Now, on the marketing and communications side, the team executed an integrated marketing campaign in celebration of the one-year anniversary of the launch of Stellar 8 Assist, as well as marking the UNHCR dispersing over $1 million to more than 1,500 individuals via the Stellar disbursement platform. And actually, that total now is up over $2 million. The goal of the campaign was to communicate the impact of Stellar 8 Assist and highlight the role that blockchain is playing in humanitarian aid today. And just as importantly, it was an opportunity for us to cement Stellar in people's minds as the network where real use cases are having meaningful impact in the world. Now, to go a little bit deeper on the campaign itself, it included strategic media opportunities, comprehensive 360-degree coverage on our own channels, including a dedicated landing page and a slew of new written and video content, and a collaboration to benefit shelter Casa Toshan, which is a shelter serving migrants and refugees in Mexico City. And we highlighted it at an event with an organization known as Friends with Benefits at Miami's Art Basel. And it resulted in the first end-to-end on-chain use of SDP from individual donor to organization to receiver. Now, all this on the heels of the brand refresh that we executed last quarter. This was really a compelling and tangible way for us to drive home the message that Stellar is where blockchain meets the real world. Now, on the events front, Meridian, which is our annual conference, took place in October in Madrid. We convened over 500 individuals from the ecosystem. And while technically that was in Q4, we did cover Meridian on the last call, but that was not all that we executed on the events front in Q4. Stellar 8 Assist and the Stellar disbursement platform were featured at the premier humanitarian aid event, which is known as 8X, which took place in Geneva at the end of October. They had over 3,000 attendees from NGOs, central banks, humanitarian orgs, UN agencies, and more. And Stellar was actually the only blockchain represented there. So SDF provided an end-to-end demo of an actual SDP disbursement as a part of our featured workshop. And our presence there really helped reinforce the value that the Stellar network can bring in cash assistance programs. It was just a great opportunity to connect with the UNHCR and introduce the Stellar disbursement platform to new NGOs. And lastly, we also had a strong presence at Money 2020, which is always a great forum for us to meet with a very wide range of fintech companies, big and small, about the core uses of Stellar. And our brand was visible on site, and we got to meet with new and existing partners about our future work together. That's what I've got. And on that note, I will turn it back to Denelle, who will share how we're thinking about approaching our work in this coming year of 2024.
Well, thank you, Jordan. All right, so it's a new year. And so, of course, we've got a new roadmap to drive us further toward our mission. 2023 was the year we took utility to the next level, billions of transactions and some of the brightest uses recognized across the industry. So this clarity of purpose and hard work has set Stellar up as a utility leader, which is super awesome. So now it's time to take the next step in pursuit of the SDF's mission of enabling greater access to the financial system by redefining who has access to everyday financial services. So think about it. Stellar has an incredibly strong foundation as a fast, low-cost payments network. There is also the global reach to a growing share of the world's underserved population. And we are embarking on a transformational year, expanding the network's offerings and value proposition for builders by integrating smart contract capabilities so soon. This move will fundamentally transform the Stellar tech stack, the network's offerings, and in turn, its future. Bringing DeFi together with Stellar's real utility will create something wholly differentiated in the world of blockchain, and we can't wait. So going into 2024, Stellar is uniquely positioned to help expand access to these everyday financial tools, such as savings and lending and credit, that can help improve and enrich people's lives without the friction and worry that they experience today. So as we embark on making Stellar a standard for everyday financial services over the next 5 years, we will map our work to 3 North Stars. You can see we like to do things in threes. Targeted objectives support each North Star, and this is where the hard work and progress toward our vision really happens. So our first North Star states that open participation, innovation, and governance are necessary for a future-proof and sustainable Stellar. So what does that mean? Stellar must be flexible enough to support what we know is valuable today and what we in the ecosystem haven't even yet conceived. It should not be built only for a single purpose. It needs to be flexible enough to achieve a variety of goals. So open participation, innovation, and governance is the only way to really make this possible. So this North Star is all about things like building a flourishing Soroban ecosystem, establishing a best-in-class developer experience, and developing a roadmap for the future of Stellar governance, which is a really important part of this. The involvement of many will help to future-proof the network so that Stellar is important to a variety of stakeholders in different geographies and industries, and it can become a useful solution for a wide array of problems. Okay, so our second North Star states that the SDF prioritizes the focus on everyday financial services in pursuit of our mission. This means SDF must be opinionated about what we support, even if Stellar is built in an innovative and agnostic way. So we want to be judicious about how we devote our resources as an organization. And that means when it comes to supporting specific companies and uses, we look at the ones building the everyday financial services products that can make today's system more accessible. This North Star is about expanding functionality and scalability to make Soroban a top-tier smart contract platform and increasing adoption of priority uses through strategic go-to-market. And finally, our third North Star is about building a trustworthy technology stack that advances adoption for everyday financial services. We know that blockchain offers innovation and new levels of transparency, and Stellar, which leverages reputation as part of its design, particularly in the consensus mechanism, can be a true beacon of trust. As innovation evolves, SDF needs to ensure that Stellar lives up to the standard of trust that users want from their everyday financial services. We do that by setting useful standards, including payment standards, that take root because of diverse set of players that adopt them. So in practice, this North Star will include things like prioritizing safety for the Soroban ecosystem and developing a roadmap for long-term scalability and sustainability of Stellar. The years ahead will continue to be guided by people, the folks down the block and across the ocean, the next generation. We are setting out a vision that sets a better standard where not only payments, but everyday financial services are all accessible. So that's our new roadmap, and it will guide us in our everyday and day-to-day, leading us to the outcomes we want to achieve in 2024. So I'm going to hand it back to Carolyn for the Q&A.
Thanks, Denelle. Thanks, everyone. So we have some questions coming in, but please feel free to drop any more that you have in the chat. And we'll start with some interest around Soroban. So one attendee is wondering, maybe Denelle, you can take this. Once Soroban is live and in use by the community, should we expect Stellar Classic to continue to confirm transactions as fast as normal? So between 5 to 6 seconds as today.
The answer is yes, that is our expectation. And obviously there's ebbs and flows even today, but we expect that to be the case. And we expect these two platforms to really work well together. So we don't expect that there'll be any slowdown or delay on Classic Stellar.
Awesome. Okay. And another question about Soroban. Justin, maybe you can take this. Someone is just curious what a normal person can do on Soroban. So how will they be able to interact with it once it is on Mainnet?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think it kind of relates to the North Stars that Denelle was just highlighting. But I think for me, the most exciting thing that people will be able to do after the launch of Soroban is have better access to everyday financial services. And not only that, but those everyday financial services will be integrated into all kinds of Stellar applications and wallets. If you were at Meridian, maybe you saw this demo, but there was like a demo of what that might look like, where basically a Stellar wallet beans that allowed deposit of USDC via MoneyGram, then integrated a DeFi protocol called Blend, which is a lending protocol. And so suddenly this wallet that people are already using now has this option for people to participate in this lending pool. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing, is that a bunch of Stellar wallets, a bunch of Stellar applications that exist will start integrating DeFi protocols that allow people to access to these new financial services. And I think people will start building new use cases, new applications that also connect. And with all of this, it sort of follows the same model that Stellar has used as its sort of core from the beginning, which is like the goal is to have a lot of different projects that can use a single sort of platform, a single settlement layer, and follow standards in order to allow interoperation. So what you'll actually start to see is a bunch of different stuff plugging together, and end users will be able to interact through wallets that sort of serve their needs. And like those connections will make it so that everyday financial services are available like sort of across a bunch of different applications, which is cool.
And just to interject quickly, if the demo that Justin mentioned from Meridian, you can actually view that. We have it on meridian.stellar.org, so you can go and look up that Beans demo that he referenced.
Great. Okay, so a lot of love for the tokenization highlight and activity on the network this year. So Jordan, maybe you can start with this one. What is Stellar doing to maintain its prominence in the tokenization buzz?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, Denelle mentioned it is right now. It is the hot new thing, and I think the good thing for us at SDF is, Stellar has been about tokenization from the very beginning. And so, but in particular,
number one, $50.
Sorry.
Can I do 60?
Helen, mute. We've been running digital ads, and we've increased that, targeted at both traditional financial institutions as well as kind of smaller challenger banks. And all that drives towards, we've got a whole asset tokenization section on stellar.org with kind of the nuts and bolts detailed guidebook, as well as examples of other companies that have been doing it. On the PR and comms front, obviously making sure the press knows our story and kind of our prominence in the space. We'll be going to the Digital Asset Summit. Blockworks puts on a great event. We'll be doing that in March in London. And our partnerships team, which will obviously be at that event, but also in general, partnerships is pushing really hard in terms of getting our story out. So we feel good about where we sit. I mean, obviously, Denelle mentioned the Masari piece in terms of them calling out. You can see the amount of tokenized assets on the network. We want to maintain that high ranking, but just more generally, we feel like our story is really sound, and it's a question of us getting the word out. And I know, Denelle, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit, even when Denelle was at Davos recently, there was a whole panel dedicated to the topic.
Yeah, we talked about tokenization and the importance of it. I'll just say that one of the things that I want to highlight is that even if some of these assets sort of sit in a way that it makes it hard for people who don't have access to a bank account or don't have access to credit cards or really wouldn't be able to use these assets initially, the hope is that as people get more comfortable with this technology, as the entities that are tokenizing get more comfortable with this technology, they'll be able to expand out. So tokenization is just such an important part of bringing these assets and creating this opportunity for loads of engagement. And so this is one of our priorities this year, is to really focus here. And, we spent a bunch of time meeting with financial institutions, talking them through. The network sort of speaks for itself. It's pretty remarkable in terms of how the ecosystem has really forced these compliance tools in the network that make it really simple for folks to be able to leverage it. So more to come here. It's a really important space for us.
Awesome. Thank you both. A policy-related question. Denelle, maybe you can take this one. Someone is wondering about stablecoin legislation in the US and how that might affect Stellar and its offerings. What does that maybe look like in the real world, and what would it potentially allow? So asking you to look
Oh
into the future a
boy.
bit.
So here's the thing. How many times have I said stablecoin legislation is so important and it's going to happen this year? I said that in 2023. I was super bullish. I think if we wouldn't have the crazy machinations that we had at the House level, we might have actually seen it happen in the US. It's happened in lots of other places in the world. And so that's really powerful for us. Why is it so important? It's really important because it brings other players into stablecoins and into tokenization. So it brings institutional players that care about being able to reach like mass adoption globally, and they can do that with stablecoin legislation. So what does it really matter for Stellar? It matters because that's like how Stellar was really built. We were built with the notion that stablecoins and stable assets are the things that you should leverage in payments. And you can see the payment volume on Stellar is just continuing to increase, and the vast majority of that is leveraging stablecoins. So we want to see this legislation be set so that everybody understands the standards that are necessary to be able to put stablecoins into the world. The one-to-one backing, the audits, all of these things are super important, and we want to see that be complete. I'm still like bullish on it, and I'm still like crossing my fingers that we're going to see it happen by June of this year. But if it doesn't happen by then, it won't happen in the US probably until next year, just because of the election. So let's all like push everybody, if you're a US based person, push everybody in your area to really focus on this kind of legislation to make this market really set. And I also, because we just talked about payments, there was a question that talked about like the payments and the payments number and what does that include? And so total payments include peer-to-peer payments, payments that go through multiple assets, such as the Naira to Lumens to USDC, and payments used to fund accounts initially, because that's actually you're having to bring value into the account. So that's a payment initially as well. So the data represents only successful transactions, and we also filter out for arbitrage. So if we see wash trading and whatnot, we'll filter out for that. So we're representing true payments on that. So that's and that's again relates to the stablecoin piece as well.
Nice, thanks, Denelle. Jordan, someone wondering where they can find out more information about SDF's work with the UN.
Yeah, we've got around the whole campaign link. If you go to stellar.org and /resilient blockchain, there's a whole, or you can search for it on the site with the search functionality up top. It's got all the detail within that. And it includes not only the work with UNHCR, but we also just put out a case study with the help of the IRC, which has also been working with Stellar Aid Assist and the Stellar disbursement platform. So go check out Resilient with Blockchain. It's got all of the materials on there. You'll see a bunch of that content as well.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jordan. Denelle, we have a question for you. Digging into the increase in number of payments a little bit, and someone is just curious, what kinds of payments do we include in this metric?
Yeah, so I just tried to preempt that question just because I was trying to fill the answer up last time, but it is like the total payments. So it's peer-to-peer payments that go through multiple assets, payments used to fund accounts initially. And so this data represents only those successful payments. So we really try hard in this number because for us, it's an important way to be able to indicate that there's increased value on the network. Only representing true payments, so eliminating arbitrage or wash trading, those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. And then one question about the enterprise fund. Someone is wondering, with the investment and our approach, how does Stellar or SDF position itself as the provider of solutions that actually work to increase financial inclusion? So kind of what is our approach?
Yeah, so the enterprise fund, if there is a return on the enterprise fund, it goes right back into the fund itself. We've had a very small return on one of the investments. I actually don't know the numbers offhand, but it was very small, and that is put back. We have internally, we like make sure and line this all up appropriately so that it goes right back into the fund itself, and that it doesn't hit SDF's balance sheet. It actually hits our balance sheet just from a tax standpoint because we have the fund is actually sitting under the SDF still. And there might be a time when we separate the fund out, but either way, we're like really good at accounting for it. And we'll do a public, because I think one of the issues there was like making this public, and we'll do a public accounting for that too. It's a little hard because right now we just look at we try to match it to in our reports and also in the value that you can just see in the enterprise fund itself. But I actually just had this conversation because we just got the first return back. I think it was like in the first week of January. And I was like, we need to really put this out there somewhere. So maybe we can just put it on our website and demonstrate that. But yeah, hopefully we'll see more returns in the next year or so.
Awesome. Thanks, Denelle. Justin, someone is interested in learning more about like community engagement going forward with Sorbonne approaching Mainnet. I think they were maybe in the Discord yesterday. So anything that you would kind of flag for the community coming up, ways for them to engage and just stay up to date?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we are the best thing to do if you want to be a member or participate in the community is to join the Stellar Dev Discord. And then once you're there, like my goal personally, or what I'm hoping for, is that we can work together to create a culture where basically two things happen, right? One, where people that are interested, that have questions, they feel comfortable, empowered, not intimidated to ask those questions. And two, where people who can help out and who want to answer those questions, they feel appreciated and rewarded for like helping to answer those questions. And so like we are working to build that culture. And I think my question for the community members is like, what else do we need to do, right? I'll say that from my point of view, there's a lot that we do already. We're trying to get in there more. We're trying to make sure that we have all the key Sorbonne discussions about technical stuff in Discord where everybody can see them. We're trying to make sure that we're responsive at SDF and that we're encouraging responsiveness from others in the ecosystem. We're doing a lot in terms of SCF. We have project pitches in there. We have SCF open discussions about governance in there. We also have weekly dev calls in there where people can come together and literally just talk. And we have the open protocol meetings in there. And so a lot of it is focused on that. We also just, on my team, hired a new community manager who you will find in there, and definitely be nice to them because we want to make sure that we're like actually giving a lot of attention to what's going on there and doing as much as we can to just like help create that culture. Finally, I think there's just like a lot that we are going to start to do this year to think about like IRL boots on the ground activations. So we're already starting to think about some very soon in that are like meetups that would actually bring community together in like regionally to actually meet each other face to face. And so I don't know, there's a lot that's happening in Discord, a lot that will happen, and other stuff that we're starting to think about in terms of real life activations. And the goal is to connect it all together to create that culture. But again, let me know if you have thoughts, because it's us, not me.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it is I sometimes like sneak in and listen to what the protocol meetings are like now, and there's so much more engagement. It's super cool, you guys. When I first started in 2019, I was like, we need open meetings. We need to do this. And Justin was like, okay, let's make this happen. And we didn't have a lot of attendance, and now we do. And there's so much more engagement, and it's really organized and it's really thoughtful. And I'm just super happy to see how much engagement we have. And also, we just did on Tuesday in Discord, and I think that there's a recording of this and that we'll put out, but we just did a discussion in Discord on what happened with respect to Protocol 20 and the upgrade and the vote that was supposed to happen on January 30th, which is now February 20th. And so we just did that. So it was fun to be in the Discord channel to do that. And I saw a note in here. I will definitely come into Discord more often. People just need to invite me. So Justin, tell Justin he needs to invite
I will.
me. And then
you were there on Tuesday. I want to say to everyone who's wondering, yes, Denelle was in that discussion on Tuesday. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun. And also just one more plug to make, and Justin's team's going to talk about this in the next couple of days, but we're actually going to Ghana, Nigeria, and to Kenya in a couple of weeks. And I'm going to be there with some other team members, and we're going to do meetups in Accra, Lagos, and in Nairobi. So really looking forward to seeing folks and local developers, local builders there. It's going to be really fun.
Nice. Okay. We are at time, but I want to get in maybe one more question, and I'll sort of merge two related ones. So people are curious, Denelle, about your Davos trip and what the interest in SDF and Stellar was there this year. And we're also getting some questions about the roadmap and kind of how the focus on everyday financial services going forward is going to impact our work and how we show up in the world. So maybe you could weave those two together.
Yep. Well, I'm going to take the everyday financial services one first because I'm so excited about it. as a management team, we came together, really put the roadmap together. And one of the discussions we've constantly had over the last many years is, are we a payments network? Is Stellar just for payments, or is Stellar for so much more? Sorbonne sort of answers that for us. It's so much more. And so I think payments is at the core of true bringing folks and bringing equitable access to the financial system, because it's the thing that you do to be able to make things happen for the individuals and for small to medium-sized enterprises and for large businesses. Payments are crucial, but there's a lot around payments. And so everyday financial services sort of sums up everything that we want Sorbonne to be and that we want Stellar to deliver. And so it makes me so happy that I'll just tell you that Nico sort of coined the phrase. Nico is our CTO. He coined the phrase everyday financial services, and we love it. And it works so well with like our future and what we really want to focus on. And it's broader than payments, but again, in my mind, like everything sort of boils down to being able to use that value that you want, to be able to use to make things happen for you and your family. Okay, and so then for Davos, we really spent a lot of time talking about everyday financial services and spending time talking about like the things that we can bring in terms of value that the network can bring, that all the wonderful builders on the network can bring. I'll tell you this, like I've been to Davos now 4 times over the last many years. And in the first time, there was a very low interest in blockchain. The second time, it was like blockchain blew up and was everywhere. And so it was crypto on buildings and everything was all about the crypto markets. And then it went into a lull. And so there was very little interest in crypto. And this year, it's right where it should be. Blockchain technology and what blockchain offers to financial institutions and to individuals all over the world is something that's a part of many, many, many different organizations, many, many different businesses and industries. And that is the way that blockchain was sort of embraced this year. Tokenization, when we talked about it, it was like with financial institutions, traditional financial institutions, that's where we want to be. So leveraging these tools to be able to make these services more accessible to everyone is where it needs to be. So that's sort of like, and we spent a bunch of time trying to meet with regulators and policymakers. And this is why I love to go to Davos, because there's challenges and like you can have questions around who should be at Davos and who shouldn't. But the truth is, it's one place you can go where you get policymakers from everywhere. So we met with lots of folks from Africa and from South America and from Europe to be able to speak to these issues that are so important about regulation, about openness to this technology. And that is really the value of being in a space like that. And so we found that we were very well received. The UNHCR work is something that lots of folks talk about. They're always there. So it was really nice to be able to meet with them, but also to see them out there talking about the work that we're doing. So it was really fun, demonstrates like the future in terms of our everyday financial services focus. And yeah, that's all I got to say on that.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end than that. So awesome. Get excited for 2024. Thanks everyone for joining us. We are over time, but we appreciate you being here and engaging. We'll have the webinar recording and report posted on the website before the end of the day. And we'll also have a blog recap up, so look out for that. And if you don't want to miss anything, just make sure you're following us on Twitter. That's where we share all the latest updates. And we will see you again next quarter. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.